Hey, welcome in, guys, to another beautiful Friday in San Diego, California. What is going on, Haley Collier?
Hey, happy Friday! We are here with another, like you said, gorgeous Friday. We are in springtime. We have, I believe, Dodgers playing Padres this weekend. So there's a lot of movement in San Diego activity, not only on the real estate side, but definitely just, summer is starting to get here. People are getting excited. People are talking about barbecues, the Padre games. I'm really excited for summer to start getting here.
We got in-person events happening. You can go to a game. You can go to brewery.
You can go dine and actually eat inside at a restaurant.
I know, my goodness. It's so refreshing to see all of you.
Happening.
Can't wait to see all of you in person. We are coming straight out of an awesome rapid fire real estate. I'm still buzzing from an awesome session. There's a group on Clubhouse, this app that you talk. It's like a big Zoom call without the video. Okay?
Yeah, it's really cool. It's I like it because it's kind of like a podcast you're listening to in the morning, or whenever you're listening to it. Only it's like an interactive podcast.
I get to talk.
Yeah, that's what I like about it. And you get to hear other people talking. So I'll throw it on at times where I would typically be listening to a podcast, but now I'll throw that on because it's just like an interactive podcast, and you still get to hear some of the same great people that you hear in these podcasts on Clubhouse, still dropping knowledge and speaking how they would do, but not on a recorded form. It's on a live form.
You can tell they're just on the couch, or some of them at their kids' baseball practice. You hear a baby in the background, and you get and you get it's like doing a rap Clubhouse, and Jay-Z comes into the room. That's like some of these flippers, some of these wholesalers.
Mikey Taylor,
Mikey Taylor, he's
huge he's huge in commercial and.
Well, the guy Cody from last night, I heard him at closing too
a
bunch. This guy, it's like having Bill Gates in the room for flippers to take notes on how to flip. It's like, that's what you get with Clubhouse. You don't know who's dropping in, like the Wayne Gretzky dropping in on a kids hockey Clubhouse or something. You'll get that from time to time because of the access. I was telling my kids, today's access to people, to celebrities, to leaders is so close, like never before. You can tweet the president, you can tweet Elon Musk.
Yeah, don't they say you're only a certain degree away from
3 to 6 from Kevin Bacon.
Yeah, it's crazy. So Clubhouse is a really cool site that we've heard about it. It's been around. We're a little late. I'm a little late of adopter of it because I did have that first initial knee-jerk reaction of being another social media platform, another app. But I actually caught myself last night. I had to text Ryan and be like, I gotta jump off of this. I gotta get ready for bed. It's getting to that time.
You don't want to.
No, I was like, shit, it's almost 9. I gotta walk my dog. It gets it gets really entertaining, and you start hearing just people talk about it's crazy just to hear how the markets and all over the different cities
that's
and
the other beautiful
states.
thing. We had the Philippines, we had Europe, we had all the continents.
We had South America one time, and he was talking about how their market is he brought up, he was like, I have a question, our market down here, in their little accent, our market down here, there's nothing on inventory, there's a lot of buyers, and we were like, we're having that same issue in San Diego.
Yeah.
So people are able to talk about that, and this platform allows you to be able to have that interweb that we've never really had before. It's really cool.
And talking about a scaling giant, Eric was crushing it on scaling. Melissa had her natural, just brilliant business strategies and solutions laid out. She dropped the mic last night.
She's gonna be on TV, moderating one day. Melissa, you are amazing at moderating. Give it up to you because one day you are gonna be on TV doing it. I can only picture it.
So we're totally fanboy, fangirl. We're stoked to be a part of it. Okay, so let's reset the room. Right? We're gonna reset the room and talk about Ticor Title Talk. Probate question and answer. That's our training today, Friday training. So thank you so much for tuning in. Probate is one of those where it's what are we getting into and how the heck are we getting out of it, right? It's just going to be a really gnarly impediment to closing the transaction. So, what are we getting into today?
So we came up with some of our most frequently asked questions. We kind of diagnosed it with some answers, and really to understand probate, whether or not somebody had a will or had a trust or had a guideline of where they wanted their estate or properties to go. If that's not set up in place, somebody has to determine that. So in California, we do have the probate courts that somebody has to determine who has the say on what happens to the properties and stuff. So
judge usually.
The judge, yeah, and then that gets into who the administrators are and executors, which is some questions that we go over. But so that's kind of understanding the probate process is if there's no will or no trust or nothing to give any kind of guideline, it goes to probate. Even with a will, it does go to probate. We'll talk about that a little more in here. But
yeah, that's the first question, actually.
But it does give you a guideline, and it does, have some kind of merit onto what was there.
So you've heard us talk about estate planning attorneys, estate planning, the importance of having a trust. This is the flip side to that coin. If you don't have a trust, you can expect to go through some of what we're going to talk about. So again, get a trust in place, hold your properties in a trust. It's like having a playbook for the people left behind when you're departing to the next station.
I mean, you only hear all the time the heartache and the sad stories of this tearing apart families, people fighting over money, and I mean,
the attorneys getting all the commissions.
Yeah, and that would be the last thing that you would want to pass on to your loved ones, I am sure, is causing them a whole lot of heartache after having to deal with this. So we hear those stories. We want to help you guys avoid that. Help your clients avoid that, because you guys are supposed to be fiduciaries and advocates on behalf of your clients. And this is a really good way to advise your clients, and buying properties is so crazy right now. Advise them, hey, let's get this property in a trust. Let's
do a little bit of planning and small investment to save a lot of heartache. And an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, right?
Yeah.
But not all of us are planners, okay? So we do find ourselves in a probate scenario, and you as a real estate professional, us as a title professional, we are the Sherpas to navigate their way through a very, very thorny, difficult transaction. So, that brings us to the first question about probate question and answer.
So one of our first questions that we hear all the time is, or frequently asked question is, I have a will, and it distributes what happens to my estate. Like, isn't that all I need? Doesn't that hold up? Aren't I good?
No. You're not good. Because a will, it does serve as a guideline for the judge. But the judge has the final say. The court is the authority in this matter. So a will, although they do take it into consideration in the probate proceedings, right?
But it's important to understand you can't have a will hold property as a vesting. So you can't have a will. It can't be recorded as Haley, my last will and testament. Like
that can't be the vesting on.
There's no vesting on that. So that's important to know. Like the will really doesn't have a merit when it comes to real estate transactions, and who has.
Because the court's going by recorded documents. This is the trail they're going to follow on the wishes of the deceased. So, unfortunately, no, a will is not enough. You have to have a trust that lays out and you deed into the trust. The trust holds vesting on title.
Perfect. You got it, Ryan.
Okay.
Next question.
Well, what does probate actually mean? The word probate.
So generally, probate is just a court proceeding, and it's a court proceeding to figure out who the administrator is as the individual. So who is going to administrate the estate? So who is that as the individual?
So you're entering a court proceeding that's going to figure out this issue.
Who's going to take care of it?
Probate alludes to that. So very good. Okay, is it like Latin descent? Is that Greek? What is that, Germanic?
Don't question me on that.
Germanic languages?
We're on to the next frequently asked question. So what is the purpose of an estate administration?
There are typically 5 purposes. It says, you heard it here first, right? 5. On this info sheet here. Throw a darn, do a video on a day here at Ticor Title. And the first of the 5 is to determine that the decedent is in fact dead. So that's an affidavit of death, right? Yep. Okay, and then to establish the validity of the will inside of the trust. The other of the 5 purposes that are the estate administration are to identify the heirs and devisees of the descendant. Okay, so next of kin, who stands to benefit, the beneficiaries of this trust, to settle any claims that creditors may have against the estate. That's a big one, because you've got subcontractors, you've got liens, you've got any claims that the estate has, those things got to be paid off through proceeds, right? So that is one of the functions. And those guys there's an appeal process. This is why probates can get dragged out timetable wise, is there's an appeal process that even though once the estate was settled, somebody who still feels they were owed money can come and appeal that. You can appeal everything with the courts. So it gets pretty hairy from there, but that's one of the basic functions. And then to distribute the property. So because if there's 3 different parts or beneficiaries, you can't take the property and distribute it. You usually sell it.
Mm-hmm.
It usually means sell the property, take the proceeds or the equity, and then divvy it up amongst the beneficiaries. So
Yep.
I would say those 5 functions achieve that.
So that's kind of what the purpose is to create this estate administration, is kind of to divvy up everything about what the estate would have. So kind of that leads us into our next question is, what is the public administration? So if there is no will, because this is probate, so typically not a trust involved, if there's a will that kind of gives me a guideline, we kind of have that set. But what if there's a person, no will, maybe doesn't have any really family members, like doesn't know next to kin, like another frequently asked question is, what is a public administrator? So what is that? Who do we go to next?
So they act as the trustee in the place of no trustee. They're
the fiduciary, yeah.
You've heard that term before. It's a professional trustee is a fiduciary. They act on behalf of the estate to administer this.
Mm-hmm. And they're mandated by by the courts of California. So there are people that do this as a living. They're public administrators, so they are there to handle on behalf of, if there's an unfortunate circumstance, if nobody has a next of kin, if there was no will in place, if there was no guideline of who potentially could have the property next, that is where that goes to. So that's
and we'll
public
send you,
administrator.
it's worth knowing you guys, because look, we get into real estate, we get into sales, we get to help people. And these are people, quite honestly, one of the darkest chapters of their lives. They've lost somebody, and if there wasn't a clear and evident trust that says do these things after I pass, which is the purpose of the trust, right? There's no playbook. So now they stand to lose to attorney's fees and to God knows what, the administration of the estate, to creditors. They stand to lose the biggest investment that they made together with that person that's now gone. Oh, by the way, I have to mourn that. And now I gotta pay all these people. It's a delicate situation. So if you can come in and be terra firma, if you can be a strong foundation for this customer, these are the guys that need professional realtors' help in this time in their life.
Definitely. So, I mean, there's a lot of other questions. Probate does get a little hairy, sticky, kind of a lot of things that get moving on it. Another term we hear, we talk about wills, we talk about this all the time, and what if somebody calls you and you have a client that calls you and they're like, my client, they're intestate, and you're like, call Haley and Ryan, what does testate mean? Like, that doesn't sound right, like, what does that mean? So what does testate versus intestate mean? That is a very common legal term that you hear all the time in the legal proceedings with this. So when you hear intestate, or when you hear it's testate, that means they did die leaving a will. So there is some kind of guidance, some kind of playbook. Intestate, no will, no playbook, nothing.
We had one of these that one of our investors was trying to buy, and the person died alone in the house, no family, no next of kin that could be found. And they tried to reach out, and then the county is going to assign it to a general administrator to sell the property on behalf of the county. And that's what happens. When there's nobody to say, me, I claim it, and you can't prove it, it goes to the county.
And you led us right into our next frequently asked questions. What is the difference between an executor and an administrator? So
let's tackle that one together. An executor is?
So an executor is somebody that's on the will. That is on the, so if there is a will that says this is the play of who I would want this to go to next. So if there is a will, an executor is technically, or what the judge will look at of who potentially would be
executor of the trust.
Yes.
I've heard that term.
So,
the guy that's running and quarterbacking.
So this would be the executor of the will. It's just not
Gotcha.
Technically a trust yet. So we have the executor of the will. The administrator, that is
carry
somebody.
out the things.
Well, that's what we publicly appointed. So that's the two differences. The executor, we know that there's somebody who we had an idea that they're there, but if there's an administrator involved, that's who we know that they were publicly appointed by the court. So you'll hear that in probate proceedings. There's the two differences. Either we have an executor or we have an administrator. So
the executor or the administrator. And then the last one that I think we want to touch on, because there's a whole big process one here. We can send you, hit us up, message us, comment, like, share, and we'll get this to you. And the one I like was, can it be sold while it's in probate? And it can. It can be sold at a private sale. It can be sold in an auction setting.
Mm-hmm.
It can be sold provided that it's approved by the judge.
Yep, and provided there is obviously a buyer. That's one of the biggest things. There has to be a proven buyer. But yes, it can be sold private buyers, you know, as long as it can be sold on an auction platform. So there can be ways that it can be sold in probate.
So call us, because a probate scenario is not a death sentence for the listing, okay? It just got a little more interesting. We can bring you up to speed on some of the things to expect. It's a process like anything else. It's actually a really viable way to get off market opportunities, and you really get to help somebody when they're kind of in a tough spot.
Mm-hmm.
You really get to come out here and help them with their real estate needs. So that's it. Probate 101, understanding probate, question and answer. We would love to send you these FAQ sheet if you'll send us your email in the comments. I think that's it for today. Is that anything else on probate? Anybody else from the audience?
We'll take questions from the audience. I mean, probate, it does, you know, definitely don't shy away from them. Like, call us if you have probate questions. If you run into somebody who you think might be in a probate scenario, hit us up, let us know. We can help guide you through that process. We have great title units. We have amazing people that know exactly what's needed to handle the probate process. So we're here to help, and we're here to advocate on behalf of you guys as always. So
and we've got some, you know, our title units have, just Candy has 35 years of experience or so. So I know we sound super smart and super technical, but they know how to do it. They deal with it every day. It's where the title unit lives. So we'd love to be the go-between between you and the title unit and put you in touch with them if you have more technical, specific questions. That's it, man. Rock and roll probate. And any other questions, hit us up. Haley, Ryan, Ticor Title.
make it a great day.